We've got some really interesting research to report about the way people are thinking about the future, because often what we find is that when people think about short-term issues, then they think about quite personal, essential priorities. But when you can just get people start to think about the long term, then the things they talk about and think about really start to change, and their perspective gets much more long-term.
And what are the sort of things that you're finding people are thinking about?
Well, it's really interesting because when, obviously with all that's going on at the minute in the news and stuff, it's about the economy, it's about short-term issues, about me and how people jobs and stuff. But when people are asked to think about future generations and talk about the long term, then suddenly the perspectives get much bigger. They get beyond themselves, beyond their immediate concerns, and about fundamentally a healthy planet and the sort of place that we're handing on to future generations. And people's perspectives suddenly change quite surprisingly.
So what do you think of the work that the Intergenerational Foundation is doing then? What are you trying to do to address this?
Well, I think it's the Intergenerational Foundation, interestingly working with other groups, all of who are sort of starting to get this agenda about things aren't working terribly well now, everything's sort of about using... The perspective at the minute is about using up Earth's resources very quickly. And I think the intergenerational perspective is, with these other organisations that they're allied to, is about saying, OK, what really matters? What really matters for the longer term? And I think it's really trying to have that conversation and obviously get the research that's been identified, understood, but also then to start working with administrators and legislators, trying to get that agenda, trying to get that further up the agenda, really.
So you mentioned the administrators there. It brings on to government. What should government be doing about intergenerational fairness?
Well, it's really interesting that that's an element that's really cropped up in the research, because one of the questions that we asked was, so how much do you think that the current government is doing too much, too little for future generations? And people were terribly, terribly clear that they thought they were doing little, far too little for future generations. So there's a massive job to do, especially in a time of crisis where all the news is about jobs or the economy flatlining and all those issues. It's saying, well, yeah, obviously that's a problem, but even people in that situation can think about other perspectives, and it's really important that government starts to do that.
Can you give us some examples of the other sorts of questions you're asking?
Well, there were 4 questions altogether. One which was about what are the priorities of government in terms of whether it's too much or too little thinking about future generations. The other 3 were about really who do you think the legacy, your legacy or the world's legacy should be left to? Is it about you, your generation, your children's generation, all life on Earth after that, or all people on Earth after that? And what was really interesting, it wasn't about me, it wasn't about my generation, it was about future generations. And a lot of people, a surprisingly large number of people, were saying it's actually about all life on Earth rather than just the future of people. And the other really interesting question was saying, OK, here are 6 options in terms of what do you think the priorities are for future generations: a thriving economy, having good science and technology solutions, strong communities, and then a healthy planet. Almost 2/3 of the respondents, the people who responded to this 1,000-person survey, which was amongst a representative sample of the population, said, 64%, 2/3 said it's about a healthy planet, which you'd never begin to guess from all the concerns that people have apparently in the news, where climate change absolutely seems off the agenda.
So what brings you here today then?
Well, it's a mixture of to come and listen to what's being said about these issues from a whole range of different organisations, but also to be able to present our research that's been done in conjunction with FDSD, and to be able to put that to people to get that sort of started to being thought about.
Okay, hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much.